And we will get our fantastic meeting started. I'm going to call it to order. I'll give it a second. We're doing it back. Give it a second. I'm doing a first call, I guess. First call. All right. Well, didn't want to shut anybody down. Okay, calling it to order at 7:02. Welcome everybody. Is there anybody here who has never been to a community council meeting before? Do not be shy, raise your hand. Is there anybody who hasn't been to a community council meeting in, say, the last year? Okay, well, welcome back, everybody. Is there anybody who it's their first time in Spenard, at a Spenard Community Council meeting? Okay, well, that makes it easy. My name is Sarah Prescott. I am president of the Spenard Community Council. Welcome. The other officers we have here are Jed Smith is our vice president. He is running our online option, and Margaret is our secretary there in the back, taking our minutes. We have Barbara, who is our auditor, and Irene is another auditor, and Peggy, who is traffic. We're in traffic. Hi, everybody, right? Okay. So we run our meetings generally by Robert's rules to the best of my remembering how Robert's rules works. So that is, I'm a human and we do our best, but so if I do say apologies, someone has the floor, that's not trying to be mean. We're just trying to keep the meeting orderly and running, but I will do my best to get to everybody who has comments or questions. With that, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes and the agenda for this meeting? Yeah, I will do it. Irene moves to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second? Celia, seconds. Any objection to approving? Hearing. Minor edit?
On the minutes.
On the minutes.
Discussion leader, Jennifer, on that meeting, I capture that facts, but
We should absolutely capture that. Did you get that, Margaret? Jen basically led last week's meeting. It'll be so the minutes should reflect that because
last,
yes, May 7th meeting. I don't think we have to vote on that amendment because it's just a fact, right?
right.
Any objections to just accepting that as fact? Hearing none. We will move on to. Oh wait, no. Any objections to approving the amended consent agenda? Now hearing none. We'll move on to community announcements. So this is a section where we have, folks have about 2 minutes to say what's going on in the community, what's happening this weekend, what's happening over the summer. You think people should know about? Great hands. Matt.
Every Thursday, all summer long, we're doing a pedal party. We meet at a different venue every week, and then we pedal to the next venue, and that's it. The idea is to get bicyclists out on the road in a group where we're safe and together. This week we're going to meet tomorrow at 5:15. We're going to meet at Humvees, and then we're cycling to somewhere. You remember what was that tomorrow? Brewery.
All right, thank you, Matt.
I'm not affiliated with them, but they have concerts every Thursday, and this week, tomorrow, they're going to Fish Creek Park.
Yes. Do you remember who the artist is and what time?
Stuff.
Rosie Rush.
7 to 8.
7 to 8:30. Excellent. At Fish Creek.
Some places are turned.
Oh no.
And
New plan meet there.
I wish, and I have other things.
Okay. Are there any other announcements? This is going to be the fastest June meeting of all time. Okay. Senator Clayton, would you like to give your report?
Thank you. It's good to be here, and I always start presentations in Spenard Community Council to say that, in my view, you are the best organized community council of anyone in the West Side because you don't have us all come every time. And you have us come 2 or 3 times a year, and then you take us each for longer at those times. We answer more questions, and then you go out, you go back for another 2 or 3 months. And I think that actually is better service to all of you in the council because you don't really need to hear 4 legislators say the same thing 4 different times. You need to hear it once and then go on to the next month, have another one to ask you. So thank you very much. Out of session, we finished 1 day early. I would say the biggest thing that people were very concerned about was school funding. There was a whole kind of back and forth. We passed one school funding bill to increase the base student allocation. That went to the governor vetoed it. We met in joint session as the Constitution provides. We didn't have the votes to override. We introduced another bill that was already introduced. We made amendments to that, added base student allocation from instead of 1,000, that was 700. We added some policies that the governor wanted. Not surprisingly, we didn't add all the policies that the governor wanted, and we didn't add all the policies some of us wanted. That bill passed both houses. The governor vetoed it again, and the next day we met in joint sessions. The Constitution provides and he overrode the veto. So that means we got a $700 increase in the base student allocation, a number of policies added, and those amounts are in the budget. The budget is now up. So that's, I would say, in terms of what we heard the most about from folks, that was really the biggest piece. We have another balanced budget. If we have revenue concerns, and amount of revenue is a issue, and so we actually had to make some cuts and couldn't provide the capital funding that I think a lot of us would like. But I think it's a budget that reflects the community values and things that we can deliver in the present day and age. A couple of pieces of legislation that passed. There's often discussion about what are we doing about prisoner rehabilitation. House Bill 35. This has been going on for 8 years, at least, trying to get authorization so they can have tablet computers in prisons to have folks in prison actually learn some skills that might help them get jobs when they get out and less likely to reoffend. It doesn't solve all the challenges in terms of prison reformation efforts, but it's a very positive step. So that's one bill that passed. There's been a lot of discussion about taxing for Turo rentals. We have a long-standing tax on vehicle rentals that covers Turo, but Turo thinks it doesn't. So we've had legislative efforts to try to get that added. That passed in 2024, which legislation I had sponsored, but the governor vetoed that legislation. So we have new legislation this year that was pretty similar to the legislation of last year, except this time instead of 10% for all the rentals and 8% for the Turo rentals, this is 9% tax reduction for everybody that rents a car, hoping that makes it more attractive to the governor. And the Turo rentals get a 2% discount, 7%, but that only lasts for 3 years. And after 3 years, it'll be 9% for all vehicle rentals in the state. Again, don't know what the governor's going to do, but some optimism. That bill was sponsored by workers that came from Big Lake. And so there's some optimism that the governor will support that legislation. And then a last piece in terms of business and whatnot with fast legislation. We were one of the few states that didn't allow 18, 19, and 20-year-olds to serve alcohol in restaurants, but not in bars, but literally if you wanted to get a job in a restaurant that served alcohol, if you were 18, you couldn't be in the service world. Most states allow that. We have restricted that, and we changed the law to now allow adults to serve alcohol. We expect the restaurants to be able to control things so that they're not drinking at the stand. So those are 3 pieces of legislation that passed. I can talk more about the budget, but mostly here to answer your questions and see if there's concerns about the situation.
Does anybody have any questions?
The State Board of Education today was considering new regulation to limit local contributions to school districts. It sounded like it got tabled. But is the legislature at all considered across the vast unorganized borough parts of the state where communities should be making a minimum contribution to education that currently do not? The ones in the majority of school districts that that do have a tax base. Not, I understand not every community does, but the way the unorganized borough spans the entire state and is kind of considered one borough. There's such a disparate economic base there. So I guess my question is, does the legislature consider some of these communities that could be making a contribution on it?
There certainly have been discussions about that. I haven't gotten a sense that there has been a consensus within the legislature, not necessarily everybody agreeing, but kind of a big support within the legislature to make a significant change. The proposal that sounds like it got tabled by the Department of Education and the board was causing a lot of concern within the legislature because the concern would be that if the way that was proposed, it would actually make it more difficult for larger municipalities like Anchorage, Juneau, Fairbanks. It would actually cause a reduction in the local contribution without a equal increase from the state side. And so it was really perceived heavily as a potential effort to really try to damage the larger urban school districts. And so that my general sense is that their decision to table that was positive. I'm not quite sure of the internal dynamics, but I know there were a number of folks and school districts trying to pressure them not to go forward with that. And I do know that some of the smaller school districts, Skagway, it turns out, has a really strong tax base. And so they're not struggling, and they're kind of in a different fiscal, their schools are funded and have a different funding picture than other parts of the state. North Slope Borough also has a very strong tax base. But I haven't had the sense that we've got any strong direction that really has caused legislature to change.
Which the governor has empowered before, and we have a good sense of how that's gonna do that. Yeah.
There has certainly been talk that we've heard from the governor's office that he might use line item B2s, including use the line item B2 to reduce the base student allocation below what we passed in House Bill 57. It's hard to know. From the governor, he hasn't been the most communicative during his 2 terms, and he's getting less communicative. And so I just don't know. I think there's a lot of folks urging him to not use the red pen very much. Based on history, I would expect there will be at least some areas that use the red pen. Whether he uses vetoes on school funding or not is an open question. I mean, part of it is that he can reduce the funding, but he can't increase it somewhere else. And so he doesn't necessarily have it's not as well if I reduce the funding here, I can increase the dividend on the other side of the equation.
I have 2 questions. Last month, we talked a lot about homelessness, and I was wondering because one of the people that came here and talked about the shelters brought up the fact that Airbnb has 3,000 well, it was to be affordable housing in town or beds that are being taken away. I didn't know if they could be taxed. My second question is not that we bring that tax for one thing, it's sort of the greater good of Alaska, but my second question on that was, he had stated that a lot of them, mainly the majority are natives from villages.
Right.
And I didn't know if there's some type of thing we could do for them, such as transitional housing, job searching and stuff like that.
So the specific question part of the question has to do with tax income from Airbnbs and other rental units. Those rentals are strictly municipal taxes. So there's no state tax that gets collected for hotel rentals, and the Anchorage Assembly has passed different things so that Airbnbs and VRBOs and all those also pay the taxes, which is similar to Turo on the vehicle rental side. The only difference is that on the vehicle side, the state actually has a tax, whereas on the housing rental or the VRBO hotels, the state doesn't have a tax. In terms of transitional housing, so there's a lot of discussion in the legislature, and I think the way we've had some influence is some of the local money that the legislature gives to cities And that's how we provided some support, but again, with some of the limited, less funding available, a lot of the optional spending just didn't happen. Does that answer both of your questions?
Yeah, I'm just hoping in the future that they have some help with conditional housing and job assistance.
And I do too.
It's just a sort of non-specific mood question of Juno. Is there really a common acceptance that the state of Alaska will maybe thrive if oil prices are high, and if they're not, if they're low, then we're gonna not really do so well? I mean, I know that the attempt to close the escort loophole went by the wayside, didn't make it, but that's not the savior by any means. So with the sole source of oil revenue, doesn't seem like it's gonna lead to a bright future for the state of Alaska.
So I certainly wouldn't say there's consensus in Juneau on any of those topics. On specific to the proposed adding a new S corp tax that would only apply to Hillcorp and maybe one other oil company. That's a measure that didn't look like there were votes to get it through the House. It would have for sure been vetoed by the governor, and so that is a path to revenue with the current governor is slim to no chance. But even if it were to pass, the revenue projection is somewhere between $30 and $150 million. It doesn't do a lot in terms of addressing all the challenges. And it's important to remember that corporate tax, like what ConocoPhillips pays, is kind of like the frosting on the cupcake. That the big share of what oil companies pay in tax revenue is production taxes and royalties. And a lot more income comes from that than comes from those corporate taxes. And of course, when we talk to ConocoPhillips about it, and they're saying, well, you know, we're investing so much in Willow now that we're essentially self-funding. And so we have very low, we of course won't disclose our taxes to you, but we actually have very low corporate tax liability because they're actually spending their own profits to develop a Willow project. And so until that oil starts coming in, they won't be in a profitable picture. So the corporate tax profit picture is complicated. I think the big change that is developing in Juneau and is getting more public sense is that 20 years ago, the lion's share of the state budget was oil revenue, 85% coming from oil revenue. Now, oil revenue is providing about a third of the state budget, and the other 2/3 is permanent fund earnings. And so we're not in that, we are no longer as constrained by sort of what oil is doing in terms of state budget. But the flip side of that is that if oil goes up significantly, say if the price were up to $90 a barrel, it would change that the permanent fund would still, those earnings would still be the biggest part of what's supporting state government. Because the volume of oil is just not enough to provide the kind of tax revenue that we had putting 2 million barrels a day through the pipeline. Now we're around 6,000.
Everybody seems to be counting on the output from the permanent fund. Then that seems to be the be-all end-all as far as what maybe all legislators, certainly some legislators, hope will avoid them having to take that worst step in the world of having to generate other, whether it's income tax or sales tax.
Right. I don't think there's a sense that there's enough. The principle in the permanent fund is not big enough to provide to fully fund state government. And I think one of the big questions, and some of the polling that we've seen suggests that when people are really asked between an affordable dividend and new taxes, they'd rather keep the dividend affordable, which effectively means you continue to reduce the dividend, which may be part of the discussion before we get to a substantial tax question. Neither one is popular.
My question is quite related to those, so you mostly answered it already, but I was curious about, you mentioned the Turo tweak for taxes. I was curious about what the kind of mood is regarding kind of longer term revenue generation and kind of looking at longer term fiscal sustainability of, our state government, which you've addressed, but I'd love to hear if there's anything else. And then maybe the second question, if you felt like that was addressed, was thoughts on the permanent fund and making sure that it is kind of generating the returns and sustainably that we want.
So in terms of a second revenue measure that we passed this year was a change to the structure of corporate taxes for out-of-state corporations. 25 years ago, Sears and Roebuck was down the street. They had employees, they owned land, they had assets in state, sales were stated. So the out-of-state corporation would pay a corporate income tax that was based in part on how much of a presence they had in the state. We passed legislation this year that changed that recognized there's companies. Amazon is less known example because now they have a warehouse here and they have drivers and they actually have employees, but there's lots of out-of-state companies. LLE, for example, probably sells a lot of things in Alaska, has no presence here as a physical presence, and with Senate Bill 113, that would change how we look at out-of-state companies that have sales here, and if they are really just sales only, we can look at the sales and assess taxes against them. And so that's another, that and the Turo are two places in which the legislature passed measures that are expected to increase revenue. It's unclear whether the governor will support 113. The interesting sort of push-pull with the governor is the governor isn't generally not very crazy about it, but it's not a new tax, it's an existing tax, and it's modernizing the tax structure. And there's some education policies that we passed in House Bill 57 that are dependent on the new revenue that's coming from that bill. So and these are programs the governor supports, so he could veto that bill, but then the revenue cuts programs that he supports. And so, I mean, but this is an example of the push-pull kind of tension that we have to work with the governor to try to find ways to get revenue measures passed. I think it's a real conversation that's going to continue to go on for, I think, years, because I think that the question about what do we want to look like, how do we support that, it's not an overnight discussion, hasn't been. It's been a continuing thing since I've been in the college teacher.
Yeah, time for about one more question. Go ahead.
Some kind of right. So a lot of talk about funding for governments. And I am kind of curious as to what the sense is in Juneau for income for individuals. So when I'm talking about, in an oil industry decline, I think the state's largest employer in the fishing industry is in shambles. We've got a federal government that's scaring people from traveling to our country, affecting our tourism industry. What do you see on the horizon for families and individuals for a future for any industry in this state? I know there was some look at food production internally, which I really appreciate from the governor, but that's really long ways out. So I know it's a real open-ended question, but times are really weird.
And I agree completely about the weirdness of these times. And it's just hard to touch base on all of them. I hear concerns from everyone on a range of different issues, and depending on, some people are concerned about how some of the approaches on immigration issues, some are real concerned about tariffs, some are concerned about how are we making it appealing for businesses that may not be US based businesses to invest in Alaska and invest in opportunities here. The best answer I can come up with is we have to really think about how do we grow the economy and how do we create opportunities. Some of that I think can be in small ways, like in the tourism industry. Are we actually maintaining the roads the way we need to, so people don't think, oh my God, did you drive down that road and you have to drive 10 miles an hour because there were some potholes there? We don't have roads in that stage today, but there's lots of deferred maintenance that we're not doing and haven't for a while, only funding the most critical areas of the capital budget. So I come back to how do we talk meaningfully about growing the economy and growing Alaska's economy. And that means don't always just look at, well, this is what we did 25 years ago, so we gotta go back to 25 years ago. We should be looking at diversifying economy, and that takes time. I mean, I still get the same feeling that Alaskans still are proud to live here and a lot of spirit about the communities here and want to develop.
Thanks, that's so.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. We're good. This is your last meeting this summer.
It's our last meeting of the summer, yes. So Michelle,
Right,
like,
that's the
needed-
first time
Right, yeah, I guess it is the first of the month. And then we'll go enjoy the break.
in the new back.
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes like this, yeah. Thank you so much. I did not hear from assembly members, so I don't see any. So I'm going to see if Terry is here. Terry.
Yes.
Terry, yes, thank you. You have the floor from the airport.
So my name is Terry Linsett, and I'm the development director for the Anchorage Airport. And I don't know where I sit right now. Oh, no. And
The picture on. Sorry, we should put a little picture on.
oh, I do it like found face, so it didn't make sense. So anyways, I have our update on the table if you wanted to grab it on your way out. And on the front page, we just list off a bunch of new routes and flights that are in the summer season, as well as some new year-round offerings. So we have WestJet is going to Calgary, which we're really excited to see them start this month on the 29th. And then Alaska Airlines picking up their flights to Detroit, and Delta again going to Los Angeles, and Alaska Airlines offering Sacramento, California service, and then Hawaiian Airlines starting from Anchorage to Seattle, and on June 12th. And on the back side here, we talk a little bit about wildlife and the airport. We have a lot of woodland and surrounding areas on airport property, and there's cats, as we all know, being Alaskans, and bear cubs are out there, and the airport does host quite a bit of wildlife. So we're just always being advocates for folks when you're out there enjoying watching planes or enjoying the coastal trail. Just be extra vigilant and give the wildlife extra space. You may have seen some smoke and fire going on May 29th, and that was just our annual live fire drill. And so we try to let folks know that when we do a full-scale live fire scenario, that's just a required training program as part of our police and fire program on the south side of the airport. We're excited to announce that Denali Spirits is a new concession that's open in Concourse B to upgrade or to update and refresh what used to be the Humvees restaurant at the end of Concourse B. And then, of course, we're always looking for folks that would love to work at the airport. We have links here as well. And if you want to get notices on public notices that the government, the state pushes out with regards to leases that are out for review, or other airport ongoings or public meetings, you can sign up on this link here. It takes you to Gov Delivery. You get those notices, and we always encourage our neighbors and to sign up so that you can always be aware of the ongoings, what's happening at the airport. I will say last month we had a very successful Apartment 50 noise compatibility committee meeting, which for the 3 contiguous councils next to the airport, including Sand Lake and Turnagain, were also invited to attend. And so thank you for that. I mentioned it at the last community council meeting. And the Apartment 50 noise study is a voluntary noise program that's federally funded, and the airport hosts and puts on, which takes about 2 years. And we're always looking for volunteers to volunteers, but folks that are interested in learning about airport noise, learning about mitigation measures that are out there so that the airport can do our best to be a good neighbor to the community with regards to noise. And so whenever we have public open houses, which our public open house was actually in this room, we will let folks know our next one is probably going to be closer to the fall, because summertime is very busy for Alaskans, and we want to make sure that we get as much public participation as possible. So with that, I don't have anything else to add. Does anybody have any comments or questions for the airport? Take that. Or
There's the Community Council, all of you or Eric, or Zoom is part of me. But you didn't bring up specifically,
is the park fund $50 team still looking for people to say, I'll volunteer to have a monitor my dog for 2 days or you kind of close that down? So I know you got a lot of interest at your open house.
We did. We were just talking about it today. If folks want to volunteer, we're accepting those volunteer opportunities. And we haven't, the airport's not deciding where they go, but the technicians and the project team, the subject matter experts are determining where it's going to be the best place with regards to traffic, as well as where are we getting the most noise complaints from. But if folks would like to volunteer their home to host a noise monitor this summer, then yeah, we would love to have that. I think we have over 60 people that have volunteered their home. We definitely don't need that many, but we love the interest. And the more houses to choose from, the better we're going to be able to make sure that we get those site selections perfect to have a good representation of the noise impacts. Certainly.
Along Postmark Drive, there's new construction going on. It looks like a square building. What is it?
Yes, that is FedEx's expansion. And so FedEx is building, it's 40,000 square feet. I have to, a little rusty on my stats, but they're building more of a regional facility to sort their packages for disbursement throughout Alaska, as well as a 7-acre apron to house their smaller regional aircraft. And it was really exciting to see them start construction. I mean, we all see construction happening in the summertime because we're very, seasonal living in Alaska for summer construction, and FedEx really hit the ground running. And they were the first construction site that I saw this year hitting the ground and going. So it's March or April.
I've been told it's about $200 million. Yeah, $200 million project.
Perfect.
Do you have a source, I guess, on a website that would announce or let us know when the runways are changing? Because when it's north and south, nobody in Spenard usually hears anything, but as soon as it has flights going to the east or west, it's pretty boom. And it would be nice to maybe know that in advance, and I don't guess we need to know the reason, I'm sure it's maintenance, but is there any place that we just say on this date for 2 days, or is it just dependent on the wind and they can't do that?
That's a really good question. It's kind of two-part. When we have maintenance, we can schedule that maintenance. And so we try to put out as early as we can on our website. So if you go onto the airport's website, Lex, which is usually here presenting to you, she's in charge of updating that. She puts a big banner on the top saying this runway will be closed during these dates. Granted, that's always tentative and based on weather, and because you have a very robust construction season this year. When it comes to wind, and that's obviously unplanned, we don't post because that could change within the hour.
So planes never land from the east to the west runway? Is it always from the west to the east they land and take off this?
Yep,
The prevailing wind is from the east.
correct, because you're wanting to take off and land into the wind. So it's oftentimes with the wind patterns that we have, it's west east.
So maybe just check at the website every week or so as an individual, just wanting to kind of know when that possibility is.
Yeah, and then I believe we also put it on our social media. I don't know if you're on social media or if you follow the airport on Facebook or Instagram too, but
It's so fascinating, actually, every night, yeah, all night. I mean, it's the upper one lounge. Anybody remember that? The lower 48, the upper one. They should get that back. And I know that when John Johansson used to come, he always talked about the new businesses and venues. Somebody should open up a new lounge upper one. But now it's all brewery.
About the what is it, the noise detectors? I don't know what they are. Are they like kid and pet and plus friendly? Is it just, what is it? What is the actual device thing?
what does it look like? We installed a few several years ago when the North South runway was shut down for reconstruction. And I actually went and installed some. And can I remember what they even look like? I want to say it's the size of this or even a little bit smaller.
And it goes in the yard.
Yep, and it goes in the yard, the microphone is protected by a big fuzzy protector, which apparently I was told moose like to chew on, so ideally it would be great to be in a yard with a fence location, so while I can't get to it, it's not gonna be children or dog proof with rough housing, but so we asked that folks who are gonna volunteer to have a space where it is protected away from traffic and children and moose. Okay. Yes.
I was just curious if how our airport's been affected by air traffic controller changes, the federal level. You guys have any?
For the air traffic control.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would say at this point in time, I'm not aware of any impacts at all to our airport operations because of, whatever might be going on with the FAA and the hiring of their traffic controllers. At this point, I haven't heard of anything that's slowing the operations down. Okay, are there any additional questions? Okay. Well, thank you so much for always giving the airport the opportunity to present and give everybody updates and to answer questions. So thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have my report, and at the very end of that, I'm gonna give Kathy Gleason a minute to explain what I'm talking about. And this report will be up on our website tomorrow. So just to kind of give an overview of our three resolutions that are decision topics tonight, we are coming back to resolution 2025-02 about the land use amendment that Bill discussed in just a moment. But basically, we're taking it would be in support of taking two zones, making them one zone B3. The next two, there's one resolution for safe parks and trails, and that addresses post-camp abatement solutions. So how can we keep our neighborhoods clean and safe and perhaps prevent further issues happening in our parks and trails? And then the next one, 2025-04, resolution on town centers and transit supportive development corridors. That one is going before planning and zoning in July, is that correct? So while we normally wait a month, we don't have that time because our next meeting is in September. So this is one where we would bend a little bit if folks are willing to, and we would vote on this resolution tonight so it could move forward for the comments for the July planning and zoning meeting. Additionally, I wanted to let people know about the FCC's new website, which also means that Spenard has a new website. It is fancy and much easier to navigate. It's pretty great. Of particular interest to folks here is you can sign up to get notices when a new public notice is posted. So you don't have to worry if I caught the email or if I thought it was important. You can get every notification for both Spenard public notices and for the municipality on the website. They will just send you an automated response that says, this has been updated, and you can go take a look. Because sometimes you're looking at it and you're like, oh, it's just, they're fixing some gravel. And sometimes it's a big, huge thing, but it all reads the same unless you do a deep, close reading of it. So that way folks can read it for themselves and we can all catch things. So I'm pretty excited about that one. I also met with Mayor LaFrance on May 8th with some other District 3 Community Council representatives, and they talked a lot about their efforts in wildfire mitigation for this summer. They were anticipating, and I assume they still are anticipating, a hot, dry summer, current weather accepted, I suppose, and also camp abatement. They discussed specifically what was taking so long at the triangle at Benson and Lois, which was that it was, well, it still is, state land. That camp has been abated. I have not driven by in the last few days, but that camp has been abated. And both the municipality and the state are looking for any solutions or ideas that folks might have to activate those spaces. To make it so they're not welcoming for future camps to pop up. And one idea that I believe it was Verena Brown about the triangle of Benson and Lois is putting some boulders up. So Kathy, if you want to talk about that for a second, we're talking about like getting a group together for some fun summer vacation product.
Fun quotes.
It'll be fun, great.
Well, I don't have a lot of detail, but technically that triangular area is within the Spenard Community Council boundaries, and we were neither one of us looked at the map and was sure, but then I finally did. Yep, it's all Spenard. But Turnigan has certainly discussed it as well, and you know, it's kind of a major gateway for our area, our neighborhood. And you know, it happened last year, and here apparently the same people, essentially the same people, decided to set up camp there in that triangular area again this summer. And so there was a lot of, you know, individuals trying to figure out what was going on, and you know, kind of bombarded the municipality, and they said, it's state land, you're gonna have to contact DOT, which is ultimately what happened. And so then, you know, we found out that the municipality is going to be doing the abatement because they have an agreement with the state, depending on the size of camps on state land within the municipality, or probably bowl area. Sometimes they just let the muni go ahead and do the abatement. So that's kind of how it's all played out. One of our active community council members had good conversations with Farina there at the municipality, and you know, he's the one that found out there was going to be a specific date so we could get the word out and so forth. But then she wasn't sure which community council that land was in at that point, and neither did Steve, our guy that talked with her. So she said, well, you guys might want to consider, you know, what can be done post abatement to prevent campers from coming back and settling right back in the next week or 2 weeks, a month, or next year. And so she kind of threw out a few things specific to that triangular area. We could clear all the vegetation, mow down all the trees, and just, you know, pavement. That would be unattractive because they wouldn't have that buffer in between two pretty, you know, high traffic areas. And I know just Turnigan would not want to see that. It's a nice vegetated area that's been there for decades. Wouldn't want to see it just disappear. They also said, you know, some kind of fencing could be put around it, which we, you know, just kind of thinking that probably isn't all that attractive. And then she threw out the idea of the large boulders being moved in and placed in amongst the vegetation that would make it very difficult for anybody to think that's a good place to pitch a tent, because you probably literally couldn't. And so we're going to be talking about this at our council meeting tomorrow evening, but kind of like the boulder idea, ran it past Sarah, she likes the boulder idea. And so, you know, even though it's technically in your council areas, we'd love to, you know, collaborate as a joint effort and just have both councils, you know, see what can be done, contact DOT, get the community involved, what it would take to just make that happen in a good, attractive way, that wouldn't cost a lot. Maybe there's a boulder supply store somewhere in town, I'm not sure. I think we can find some out in the wilderness somewhere. So just that's kind of an FYI as far as that particular spot, that particular encampment that was abated a couple weeks ago, and we're really happy about that. But now we just wanted to ensure that it doesn't turn back. So I'll let you decide. You know, we're just kind of chatting about this, and you know, I don't know if we get ad hoc committee.
Yeah, the idea is basically if it comes from two community councils, it has that much more strength. And it is on the border to the point where we weren't sure, like, is it half Turnigan, half Spenard? It is all Spenard, because of like where it is in the street.
Do we want to just add a line into the parks resolution that we already have about these folders? So we just could add that in there, when it comes time to do that. Would that work?
Yes, I think it's the follow through. Can we that we
Well,
make sure.
well,
Well, and the Parks and Trails thing too, I think is just the municipality, right? Are we just addressing that to the municipality? Or is it something where we could all, because it would be expanding it to the state, because it's still state land, so we have to.
For resolution, I agree with you, King.
yes. Because the tunnels under Minnesota.
Tunnels, that's right. Okay, well. That makes it happen much.
Yeah.
faster.
Talk offline about where it needs to go, they're all trying to reach the same goal. We'll just. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what Will's saying, so. And I forgot I had the tunnels for DOT, the last thing, so. Okay, so that's good.
We can, yeah. When it comes down to that agenda, we'll draft it and send it on.
Cool.
But I don't wanna derail the older idea, but the site is so incredibly desirable. Because our grocery store is right there. And our grocery store employs a bunch of our neighbors who are various levels of handicap, disabled, vulnerable people, and they're very easy to steal from. And that's where they were getting their food. And I mean, that's how you lose a grocery store. You know, we've already had one cars closed this year because they weren't making any money. There was too much theft going on. And I'm not sure how to address that, how we encourage cars to address that, how we. Yeah, I mean, as long as there's free food available, they'll come down. They may not stay in that triangle, but they'll stay in the Terms Park, they'll stay anywhere around the grocery store. They were across the street at Ben Boki Arena. Like that's, yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah, and it is about, activating those spaces, and unfortunately, we can't be in every space all at once, and that was, something that's great about Alaska, is that we all have, what is it, like 1.1 square mile per person? Which means you can only activate so many spaces in so many ways.
That
But with the wonderful leaders everywhere.
Right, and as far as I know, and it's actually the plan for husband Dan and I, after we leave this meeting, is to go check it out, to make sure I know where it is. People have been reporting there's a homeless camp just north of the West High Roman campus area on Hillcrest, where there's an observational area to look at downtown, and they've said there's one right in that area as well. And so, who knows what will happen with that. Like, there were soldiers, but they just, not having any insight into psyche of where they choose to, set up and why, and what deters them and what doesn't, is just difficult. And it's such an incredible problem for our city right now. It's unfortunate. But with this particular spot, it's doable, it's small, and I think boulders might be, a good solution for at least that spot. Right, yeah, so
Great, yeah, so what I'm hearing, when we get to our second resolution of the evening, we'll run through Robert's Rules version of how we're gonna add amendment to that. And then we can be in touch on the follow through piece. Yeah. So if it hasn't happened by a time to be determined, that will determine our amendment basis, then we will go to next steps, and I will be in touch.
yeah, sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
Thank you, Kathy.
thank you, everyone.
And thank you, Jen. And that concludes my report. Next up, we have Kate. Welcome, Kate.
Yeah, so as our last month's community council meeting, I presented a proposal for a rezone plating action. Today I'm here to bring a resolution in support of the project to a vote. To quickly recap, the sites on the corner of Spenard and West 32nd. Up the street to the north is the Ponchos Villa restaurant. Down the street to the south is the Carousel Lounge. The site consists of 3 lots. We are trying to combine those lots into one parcel and improve the development potential of the site. However, 2 of the lots are zoned B3 and 1 is zoned R2M. To combine the lots, they're required to be the same zoning district. Therefore, we are also proposing to rezone the R2M lot to B3 so that all lots are commonly zoned and we can combine them into one larger parcel. Now, there were some concerns from the members last time about rezoning a residential lot into a commercial lot. And I would like to emphasize that this lot is not currently being utilized as a residential use. And if it remains as it is not likely to be utilized for residential use in the future. The entire reason, well, due to its shape and location, it's a rather narrow lot that's sandwiched in between a trailer park and a commercial district. And so we are trying to combine these lots to better utilize them. Also, the B3 zoning district is one of the few zoning districts in town that you can build both commercial and residential development, including multi-use development. In fact, the property directly to the north of this one is a B3 zoned parcel that has 12 condominium residential units built on it. So yeah, I would hope that you guys will vote in support of the resolution number 2025-02.
Yes, yes. Are there any questions?
Yeah, any questions?
For Kate?
Is it across the street from Ponchos? That
Ponchos?
lot right there? Like if I'm Ponchos right there.
No, it's like a little bit down. Ponchos is to the north.
Oh, okay. Well, there's south. On the other side of south of Ponchos.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just to refresh my memory for folks that might not have been to the last presentation, there is currently no party that's interested in doing anything, but this is more a move of speculation as opposed.
Yes, this is for potential future development.
I think it was the last structure or utilization of the R lot, so what
The R2M lot used to have a residential single family home on it that was vacant and then demolished.
how long ago?
I'm not sure what year that was. You know what year that was?
So it never really had, it never had, well, it had a garage shed that was used for repair. And so the original property was Spenard Pawn Shop. And then next door was Lloyd's Coin Shop, 2-story building. Those buildings were so old and so in bad condition that it was impossible to sell because the amount of money that it would take to bring them back up to code and be able to use them for any function was too expensive. And so the best option became in November of 22, Alaska Demolition came in and demolished all those buildings and removed the
So it's
town.
garage shop then.
November of 22, November of 22, Alaska Demolition came here and removed all those structures in order to open up the land for more a better use of what was already there. Because there was a big warehouse, pawn shop, all of those buildings were in such bad condition that they couldn't be used.
My question was just about the R designated lot, not the 2B lots.
Okay,
I realized the history of those. I just never knew if there was a structure on the R lot, meaning, I guess it's on for a second.
the only structure that was there was like a garage shed. It was used in conjunction with the shop to repair stuff in order to sell it. But when all the other buildings were demolished, that was taken, but there never was one.
Any other questions? Yes.
Like you did the last meeting, you mentioned that there was a lot of people that felt pretty strongly about this. And I'm just wondering how we got to the point where there's resolution.
So there was a resolution introduced last month
Oh, it was.
for both
Oh,
this month, because we traditionally wait a month when we are not up against the summer with no meetings. So it was the month waiting period.
oh.
Oh, yes.
Last month, we talked about the location, which was very confusing. It looked like the map that we got was not where it was. And then you just mentioned that the location is between Ponchos and the carousel. So it is on the west side of Spenard. I thought that last time we decided it was on the east side of Spenard. So that would not be between the carousel and
It is on the east side,
So
but
that's by.
I was trying to give some landmarks to where to the north.
But that's on the opposite side of the road, so.
Well, yeah, but there's not really a good landmark.
Sicily's, Popeye's, Emporium.
Would
That's,
be to the south, yes.
Yeah, I get you.
yeah, there's a lot of things on the. Okay. Just to confirm.
Yeah, so. The discussion last month revolved around, this, we really do need and want residential. But. We either have R2M. Or B3, and if it's B3, then they can put car lot, anything can go in there. But it could also be residential, and they are not developing it at all. They just want to sell it, and they want to sell it all as one piece, and it's going to be worth more as B3. And even if we come out against this, it probably won't happen anyway. Because we don't have a veto power in this as a community council. So.
And then the majority of the site that we are combining is already B3.
Right, and it's,
We're just trying to get that
that,
narrow lot that's sandwiched in between the B3 and the trailer park.
yeah,
Yes, sorry.
Thank you for being here, this month and last month. I would be more inclined to support this resolution if, we had a better idea of what a development plan could look like. Right now, it's so open-ended and you're interested in just getting rid of it and you get it and you need to do this. I'm not comfortable putting forward a resolution in support of getting rid of, residential housing, recognizing you can't put any conditions on this. The muni doesn't want conditions on things. They want less restrictions on zoning rather than more. So I would offer that we maybe just table this indefinitely and not take a position rather than wholeheartedly supporting getting rid of the two residential lots that are in existence. And I don't want to speak for people who aren't here, but I do know that that was a big concern last month. And we're not going to stop you from moving forward if we just table this indefinitely.
Well, I guess
that
I
would be a
don't
better
see
position.
how there's a problem with putting it to a vote. Because if everyone votes no, then it just, you're not voting in support, and if everyone votes yes, then you're voting in, I don't see why we can't put it to a democratic process.
Send a message that we're saying no to things, like no to, recognize, like.
Well, vote for no isn't a vote against it, it's just.
it would come across that way.
So I have a clarification and also a question. So it's. Both of those are options. If the resolution fails. Then it wouldn't necessarily go anywhere, like. As president, I would not be sending the failed resolution forward because it didn't pass. Which could be the same as tabling it indefinitely. That said, it's in the minutes, so if somebody wanted to dig and find that, that's an option. I give neither of those weight, whatever we decide as a body to do, that's what we can move forward with. My question is about the planning department. So I know the planning department is reluctant to change zones.
Yeah,
From
so
B to, or from R to B, so have you talked to them and?
Yes, so there is a section in Title 21 that restricts the planning department or restricts the rezoning of any residential lot to a commercial lot. So the planning department cannot be in support of a residential lot being rezoned to a commercial lot.
Okay,
So they would recommend denial.
okay,
But it goes before the Planning and Zoning Commission, who is a body who vote on it.
right, okay.
Related to that, my question is, where is this like procedurally, does it have a date before the planning and zoning commission, or where are things procedurally with respect to?
Procedurally, I have submitted the initial application for review. They have returned with their review saying that I am good to submit the full application. And I was waiting for this meeting before I submitted the full application, which I would likely do tomorrow. And then they will set a date. It's likely going to be in September if I submit tomorrow. But they don't set a date until really like 21 to 30 days in advance. And then if anyone got a mailer for the last community council meeting, they would get a mailer for the public hearing. But you don't need to get a mailer for the public hearing to attend the public hearing. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so. Again, I'm gonna make a motion that we table this indefinitely rather than vote on this. It sounds like based on the third resolution we're gonna hear tonight, the planning commission is also considering zoning overlays for transit supportive development corridors, which is what Spenard Road is. And I would be kind of more interested in seeing what the planning department comes up with respect to a transit supportive development corridor. In a situation like this, we can kind of work more on a more sustainable kind of long-term solution that fits our vision, rather than kind of hope that this B3 turns into another Cook Inlet region development, which is something we want, mixed use. But the downside is it could be a car lot, right?
So before we proceed, there is a motion on the floor
I'll
to
second.
table this indefinitely. Okay, seconded by Will. Is there further discussion on tabling this indefinitely?
I'd also like to add that transit supportive overlay is an overlay district. It does not replace the zoning. So this area does already have overlay for mixed use development. So it doesn't negate any zoning that's already there. Just like.
I'm sorry, I did not follow that.
He was talking about the third resolution where the planning department is doing transit-oriented overlay districts. And they're trying to decide where they want to put those. An overlay district does not change the zoning underneath that overlay district. It is just a marker for certain things to happen in that area. So if something is zoned, say, B3, if you do a transit or overlay over that B3, it's still a B3 lot.
Okay,
Just to.
I think call for the question.
yes. You have a follow-up question? Oh, follow-up question.
Yeah.
That means we vote now.
Motion.
Motion second, call the question.
Oh.
That means we vote to call the question, yes. Pardon? We vote on the motion. Thank you.
Yeah.
I haven't had a call a question in a minute.
Yeah.
So thank you. Okay, so a reminder, eligible to vote if you have attended a community council meeting in the last 12 months as a resident or business owner in Spenard. All of those in favor for tabling this resolution indefinitely, raise your hand, and online, raise your emoji hand or turn your camera on and raise your hand. Yeah, okay. All those opposed to tabling the resolution indefinitely, raise your hand or turn on your camera and raise your hand.
Is anyone bringing the motion? Can I vote on the proposal? I am a resident.
And
I was
have
at the last
attended.
meeting. That's
You are eligible to vote, yes. Okay, opposing tabling it indefinitely. I see 1, 2, 3. Okay, the motion to table indefinitely passes. Which means that there is table. Thank you, thank you for your distinction. Okay, next up we have Jed to discuss safe parks and trails.
Thank you. I drafted this resolution kind of in direct response to a lot of the concerns that we heard last month. It was a pretty spicy meeting about some of the impacts to our neighborhoods. These were kind of three seemingly low hanging fruits that we could go after to just say, hey, look, we need our part in kind of working in partnership with some of the um, bringing in some of the services to our neighborhood. These are some things that the community and DOT could do to support our neighborhood and keep it safer. One of them is a drift style barrier to prevent cars from getting into the Vetcher lot, which is, the notorious campground over here with the trail through it. One of the items is just to continue to thank Parks and Rec and to encourage them to continue maintaining our parks, removing the garbage. That constitutes activating the space, which is something that they talk about. We want clean and safe parks, and we'll do our part to activate the space. They do their part to remove the garbage and put the lawn and stuff. And then the third item on here is to do lighting improvements and repairs to the 3 below grade pedestrian crossings, one of which is under Spenard Road, which is being maintained. And then 2 of them, one is under Minnesota Boulevard, the other's under International, that accesses kind of that De La Vega softball field. So those were 3 kind of concrete asks we could do in this resolution, and then based on our discussion earlier, potentially adding forward, which is, some aesthetically suitable mitigation at the triangle after post abatement to prevent more activity in there. Hostile water. Not, yeah, I mean,
I didn't hear what
I
that
get it. We don't want another cheese grater fence like we've got along Minnesota, Lights and Benson. So yeah, it's kind of a tricky thing there.
About the tunnels, I would love to see like no loitering signs in there, so they have something that they can afford.
Yeah, I mean, I think big lighting improvements in there for sure, right? Or, be a deterrent, hopefully, but also just making it safer so someone's in there before you go in there. But yeah.
I mean, we give the police something to enforce. There are people that just for the.
Oh, yeah.
That's about the sleeping bag in there. So not even long sure.
It sounds like we're going to try to add in the boulder aspect of here in the triangle. I'm curious if we could have thoughts to that to also like potentially explore longer term solutions to activate the space. So it's not just like, again, trying to prevent people from being here, but maybe trying to create a space. And I don't really know the space that well, so I don't know if it could function as anything else, but like activating it in more like positive ways, such that it gets community use, and that potentially deters uses that we don't want versus just like trying to, and I understand it's a temporary potential measure, but I'd rather have it. And as we discussed with some of the trails, the well-used trails are less likely to have like the paint right on there versus those that aren't well-used. And so just for a longer term thing, I'd love to, if we try to have a more positive vision for the space versus just kind of negative, kind of maybe use of the space.
Yeah, this specific space is not designed for this at all. It's a medium. It's a median. It's between 2 high.
triangle of Lewis and Benson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a proper crosswalk and removal of the overhead pedestrian passes that do not meet ADA compliance would be a great start, because then we have people walking at that level instead of taking 3 flights of stairs. But
There used to be trees in the middle and then they took them down. Is that what happened?
There are still trees there.
There are still trees in that, well, there's trees on the outside.
there's fewer, they just got a
They took down all the center trees.
building material.
Yeah.
In response to that about,
okay.
last year, there was an abatement camp. And yes, it was used to be fully wooded, and I noticed that 1 or 2 large trees, I think, our heavy snow, winter before last, kind of one or 2 kind of came down on that respect. But last year when, there was a camp fire, there was a fire.
Oh, that's
So
great.
that got a lot of that inner area, and so, another suggestion as part of the boulder idea is to plant more trees, plant some vegetation, and allow it to, fill in that kind of fill that hole now.
Yeah.
And yes, I mean, that's not, I mean, you've got cars whizzing by there, and, there is no other There's no community use, and it isn't a park. And I'm not sure what the DOT calls it, but it's kind of wild. And so in hindsight, I don't know if your resolution is about parks and trails, so. You know, technically this should not a park, but I'll let you guys.
Well, it's parts trails, but it's really that gets into the overlap mitigation efforts. And soften on all those things. I would offer up this language, I think, just to add a short bullet point in there, encourage the municipality and DOT to recognize they gotta both work together on this. To add tasteful deterrence measures, post camp mitigation, to the Northern Lights, Benson region.
So,
Do we want to say boulders
I wanna keep
specifically?
it like sufficiently vague, so.
I like it big because they cut out those mature ones. I don't know what they're called, but they're also on there. You know, leaving the school, they're installed mature, they're tall, and they remind me of cypress trees, but they're leafy. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I like those things.
And they put it in the roundabouts at Huffman. It was possible. Yeah, they're tall, skinny like cypress trees, but they're leafy.
Columnar, valves or.
They're put in mature. Yeah, those can be cool.
There's a few on Ninth Avenue, Radio, around house.
Of course, this was a more natural, like, looking area, you know, originally.
So if you want to like
Beings.
put some kind of committee together on landscaping, I think would be happy to work on it.
So that committee can then determine what tasteful landscaping your language was.
So after a motion to put that amendment in the,
Technically, yes.
how would you now put that amendment in?
Well, we haven't actually moved to approve this resolution, so first we have to move to approve, get a second, then we can just, we don't have to discuss it more, then someone can move an amendment, second the amendment. You move it to approve?
So.
It's the opposite.
Jason has, pardon?
It is the opposite. It's the opposite. So then we can approve it, that, when you go, yeah, thank you.
Got it. So, on the floor, move seconded, motion to amend.
Excellent,
I'll second you.
great. The amendment, do you have the words for the amendment, Jen? Are they
Yes.
exactly what you just?
To
you're gonna
encourage the
amend it?
municipality and Alaska DOT to add tasteful deterrent measures, post camp mitigations. We need to call something more specific than Northern Lights, Benson, Triangle Median.
Rebecca.
Well, how about the lowest, John? Lowest, John. Yeah.
Great,
Oh,
I did too, I got to encourage.
My friend, whatever.
everything. Yeah, but trying to pull out language there, so. Do we should recall motion, I think, then the,
Jason is the.
Jason and Will moved,
Jason. Turn to the doc, the resolution.
yes, Jason moved to adopt, Will seconded.
Okay, for the
Now,
management,
and I think Will seconded that.
Jason seconded,
Jason seconded. Thanks, I'm
it's quite the volley.
I don't know, and I'm able to will apologize. Is there any reference to collaborating with the two community councils that they should?
You gonna help us with Northwood drive over here and Jersey barrier?
I think that's still, I think that's really Spenard,
Yeah.
that's super Spenard, it's like deep in the heart of Spenard.
It's all one community.
So now we need to vote on.
Well, now we're discussing the amendment.
Oh.
Okay.
If there's no discussion, we can vote to approve the amendment. As written. Any objection to approving the amendment as Jed said, and I will get the language and put it here. Any objection?
No objection, but like on the bike trail, I don't even know what you would do, excuse me. I live on Star, Minnesota, behind the Circle K there. And planting those tall trees and boulders like that would be help, so. But I do approve of it, but I'm just saying it's not a one size fits all.
But some signage, welcome to Spenard.
It's always been here.
Welcome to Canada. Go.
So I'm hearing no objection to the amendment, so we're gonna add the amendment. And now the main motion is back on the floor, which is where we can discuss the rest of it. Because now there's 4 points.
I mean, this is well thought out, this is the plan, and as Jen said, it's slow hanging fruit, like this could be accomplished. We should pass it.
If I may also throw in my 2 cents, I think this is also vague enough that we can have says via like ad hoc committees on what was it aesthetic landscaping, tasteful landscaping looks like that's where I see our role come in, because we may get word back like, what does that even mean? Like, well, we have this document for you now too. So I think that part kind of addresses the concern about one size fits all, because we can't put boulders everywhere, just in the parts where like it makes sense, because putting big boulders, you're right, on a corner, putting tall trees on it.
Or a cheese grater fence.
Or a cheese grater fence. Because that is not tasteful.
Is that why we hate it? Because it's ugly.
Okay, call for the question.
Oh, did we have a call for the question? Yes. Second, okay, we're voting on the main motion. All those in favor of passing this? Raise your hand. Yeah, 15, anyone? Are there any votes online in favor? Okay, 16 in favor, any opposed? None opposed, resolution passes. Thanks, Jen. We will get that language into the resolution and send it where it needs to go. Next up, we have 2025/-04. Will, you have the floor. Thank you, Kathy.
So for those of you who are here in January, I presented generally on transit support development. As a refresher for those of you who weren't here, don't remember, transit support development is kind of a strategy of trying to have like condensed mixed use, residential use, along with transit and kind of walkable sidewalks and everything, and bikeable accessibility. So to try to foster that kind of integration of kind of mixed uses, residential uses, and transit, and other kind of forms of transportation. This is something that has been in our plan, so many plans, in the comprehensive plan, and 2040 plan, and in the Spenard corridor plan in terms of transit support developments. And the Spenard corridor plan is actually the first transit support development plan of the municipality that encourages kind of forward and along the Spenard corridor. But so far, these are just in plans. To actually actualize any of that, those corridors needs to actually be implemented in code through ordinances. Recently, there have been 2 ordinances submitted to be before the Planning and Zoning Commission next month in support of transit support development. One is basically a few amendments to the comprehensive plan that basically increases kind of the dwellings per unit density for target facility for these corridors up to 25 dwelling units per acre, which is more aligned with what I forget what it's the kind of the American Transit Authority or something came up with. So that's necessary to kind of foster that synthesis of transit and sufficient dwellings. It also expands the from a quarter mile to a half mile around these kind of transit corridors like Spenard. And then the second one is basically would put in an overlay district in these corridors throughout the municipality that would allow for some reduced regulations to allow for additional kind of development by reducing things like the setback requirements and increasing height limitations, reducing the minimum lot size to allow for further developments and different types of developments and kind of inconsistency around where we already have some increased infrastructure, or we have transit routes, Spenard, Tudor, Lake Otis, the Bar, those types of roads. And so those are going to be again going before Planning and Zoning Commission next month, I believe on the 14th. And so we have a resolution here supporting it. Again, actually, the Spenard quarter plan calls for an overlay to support, try to support development along the Spenard corridor. And generally has been something that the community has supported. Yeah, so I'd ask for folks' support in the resolution.
Yes,
The definition on number 4, single room occupancy development, is that?
So a single room occupancy is, I don't know like the technical definition. I think it's just like, it might not have like a kitchen and stuff. It's like single, like, I think some of the hotel conversions might be like essentially single room occupancy. So it's not like multiple room. It's almost like lesser than like a studio. It's like kind of maybe minimal or sort of, you know.
Kind of like a dormitory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like my guest room. Where I have a little refrigerator and one microwave. That's it.
Yeah, something like that, that basically can allow for like a lower price point, kind of option for folks who might not be able to afford like a studio or one bedroom.
Your rental versus purchase.
It's not necessarily like defined as rental versus owned, but probably more likely.
Never heard that choice. Thanks. Sure, what is? Sure. Is there any urgency to get this done at this meeting?
So, these are going to be before planning and zoning commission in July. I don't know, really, I assume after that, assuming it moves forward with the planning and zoning, that would be before the assembly for a vote. I don't know what the timeline for that would look like, but I think there would be a good chance that would be before September when we meet again. And so that's sort of why there's kind of the potential timeliness of considering this.
Yes, Matt.
Motion
I'm gonna say,
vote.
we have to move to approve first.
Call it.
We actually don't have a motion on the floor yet.
Yes, question about resolution.
Second.
Okay, move to approve by Matt, seconded by Will. All those in favor? Raise your hands.
Which hands?
Everyone, but only one. Anyone online? This would be a vote to approve. Okay, all those opposed, raise your hand. Emoji or real. Okay, what did I say, 12? 12 approved unanimously with 12 votes. Motion passes, or resolution passes. I'll also get that where it needs to go.
Good.
I think that concludes our meeting.
To adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Did you just second it, Jen?
Yep.
All right, we're adjourned at 8:25. Thank you, everybody. Have a fabulous summer. Thank you for testing.